Hello, my name is Jim Smith, and I wrote this book about the history of the last beach, Bedowi Beach in Panama City Beach, Florida. Drive west on Front Beach Road just past Margaritaville and look to the left. History comes alive as you marvel at a half-mile of sand, dunes and foliage, creating a scene that looks pretty much as it did 100 years ago. Nowhere in Panama City Beach will you find that view, as every year condos and hotels hide more and more of the world's most beautiful beach. So a first-time visitor might wonder, why isn't a Marriott there? The answer appears in just published book, Bedowi, A History of the Last Beach, written by Jim Smith, who has lived in that community for 30 years. Think of it as a recipe with lots of ingredients, from a series of legal skirmishes over ownership of the beach and some unsavory villains, to the romance of the couple who first developed the area and a woman whose generous check prevented bankruptcy. The book is the result of 10 years of tedious research. What I found, Smith said, was a lot of people from Southeast Alabama, Southwest Georgia, Northwest Florida, and the Bedowi community had a lot to do with the history of Bedowi Beach. That didn't make sense to Smith. I found this to be not only bizarre, but it also just didn't feel right. So he decided to do some research. I became totally immersed in researching the chain of title of the beach, including how the beer distributor gained ownership. The research became my passion, and gaining ownership for the community became my cause. Some fascinating people surfaced with the research, beginning with Harry Cayley, who purchased the 140 acres that is now Bedowi in 1926 for under $200 thanks to the Homestead Act. 3 years later, the property was sold to Dr. Grover Miller and his wife, Eula, who became the sole owner when her husband died in 1934. She is one of the heroines in the story for developing and ultimately dedicating the beach to property owners in the community. Smith, now 79, served for almost 4 decades in the Army, retiring as a colonel in 2000. He and Penny have 2 children, and one of them, Lee, and his own 2 children, convinced him to write this book. While they were enjoying a day on the beach in 2014, Smith asked his grandson some innocuous questions about Bedowi when Lee interrupted. The story could have ended there, but actually, it's only the beginning. For the rest of the 20th century and into the 21st, Bedowi Beach has been a tasty target for individuals, companies, and even our local political leaders to gobble up for their own uses. Each time, the community has prevailed, but sometimes barely. It was, in fact, a day away from being auctioned off when the story's second heroine, Eunice Keaton, a Bedowi property owner, produced a $17,000 check to cover past taxes and other fees. And even when the dust settled on ownership, Bedowi faced an internal struggle that included vandalism. When coated gates were installed to keep the beach private and safe from the damage incurred when it was open to the public. Smith, now 79, served for almost 4 decades in the Army, retiring as a colonel in 2000. He and Penny have 2 children, and one of them, Lee, and his own 2 children, convinced him to write this book. While they were enjoying a day on the beach in 2014, Smith asked his grandson some innocuous questions about Bedowi when Lee interrupted. "Dad," he said, "they know all about this beach and they love it. But what we don't know about is you and this beach. What happened that made you become so involved with this beach for all those years? It's taken 10 years and about 250 pages, but now they have the answer." The story will appeal to the Bedowi residents, of course, but anyone interested in the early days of Panama City Beach will find the characters good and bad as fascinating as a Grisham novel. The book is available in hardbound, paperback, and Kindle at amazon.com/books. Simply type, Bedowi, A History of the Last Beach in the search bar. Order your copy today.